welcome back to my channel. This week we are going to model something really special for Christmas. We will be creating a Christmas character animated dancing to wish you Merry Christmas. The tutorial will be divided into 3 parts. The first will be modeling, the second will be texturing, and the third will be animating using Mixamo. Let's start! I advise to start drawing your character to check the sizes. I did a quick sketch of mine just to double check how big it's gonna be and the length of the arms and the head compared to the rest. After adjusting your character in a software, import the file and scale accordingly. Add a cylinder, subdivide 16 times and adjust the height to create the torso of your character. Remove the top and the bottom caps because you will have to extrude the cylinder to create the rest of the body. Also switch between transparent and full mode to see the image in the background. Add a mirror and remove the left part or the right part, depending on how you prefer to work, of your cylinder. From now on you will just work on one side. Start extruding the arms. Using inset, add additional geometry. You will have to think that your character will always be composed of 6 or 8 polygons. The arm in this case is made of 6. Add cuts where necessary and don't be too precise because at the end you will have to smooth this character with a subdivision surface modifier. And this will really help you to create what you want. As you can see, I'm moving the points to generate a general shape. Now, this process can take a lot of time. For this reason, I had to skip certain parts of the tutorial, but you have a general idea of how to do. Always also try to use quads, so polygons with 4 faces. The reason is that quads allow you to create additional cuts and are also what you need to apply a subdivision surface because it subdivides the polygons the amount of times you put into the subdivision value. Whenever you have to add additional elements, simply add a new object, connect with the previous one, and then add with the F command the faces, selecting the edges around. I keep extrude my model, creating general shapes. In this case, I am extruding the pelvis part, and I am extruding the front and the back side, and I connect them point by point. Simply press N and connect at center or connect at first and last to join 2 vertices. The end of the sleeve will be a slightly thicker cylinder. For the legs, I try to keep the same poly count, and for this reason I am adding inside of the main object 2 hexagon because we have 6 polygons for the legs. I bridge them and I connect the legs to the pelvis. Whenever you are unsure, simply drag and extrude. Also, when you will have to animate the model, the joints need to be properly set up. In this case, you will need to have 1 loop cut between the beginning and the end. We start with 2 cubes for the hands. We subdivide them 3 times to create 4 front polygons, 4 front faces, and insetting them with individual origins, we create every single finger separated. Remember that the hand and each finger have more or less the same length. We keep the flow with the thumb and we extrude the wrist and the part of the arm that will be hidden inside of the sleeve. We do the same for the feet. In this case, we don't really need to model the feet. We model directly the shoes. Start with a rough shape that is extruded from directly the legs and add piece by piece the parts. Now, for the top part of the shoes, I wanted to keep them attached to the shoe itself, but I found it easier to create separate parts and then adding them to the main object. For the head, we start from a UV sphere. We subdivide as many times as the neck. So in this case, it will be subdivided 8 times. Then we delete the left part and we will be able to apply the mirror also to the head. The shape is slightly longer, so we select the top part and we simply grab on the Z axis. To create the face, I use this technique. I add the feature as separate objects. So eyes, mouth and nose. And using the snapping on the surface, I move them point by point. Remember that with the mirror you will have just to model the left or the right part. We already have the shape of the head, so every time that we extrude something we simply need to keep the snapping on, and remember to keep it on surface. You can find a lot of great advices online on how to create the face loop cuts. Topology Guides is a great website where you can find them. This process can take a lot of time. I again speed up the tutorial a little bit, but I think that I give a general idea on how to do it. You remember that you can also extrude points, not just edges. And once you extrude the point, if you select 4 of the points and you press F, you can create a new face. Also, don't be afraid to make mistakes when you work on those kind of stuff. It's more about problem solving rather than having a definite process. I extrude the eyes and I don't model them, as I like the inspirations of cartoons like Helga or Adventure Time. I add other shapes to create the ear. We always start from a cube or a sphere or a cylinder. Start modeling the general shape and then add details, just extruding and insetting polygons and faces. Once you are happy with the result, connect with the face itself. Originally I wanted to use the cylinder that I made for the head to model directly the face on it, but given the complexity of the geometry of the face, I thought that it was better to model the new cylinder directly on the old one using the snapping. Once you are happy with your result, simply bridge the edges. In some cases you will have to create some artifacts. Just remember to keep the distance between 2 edges long enough not to create pinches. Also, when you are unsure about a shape, simply create the general shape and connect the vertices of the previous one to the new one. Connect then the neck to the head, and we start with the ear. We create a Bezier curve with 3 vertices. Pressing Shift A, we can scale them. So we can start thinner, then go thicker, and then go thin again. And simply move the points to fit the shape of the head. This can take a huge amount of time. The result is pretty impressive if you consider that they are just extruded NURBS curves. We move them to the belt. We start with a plane that will generate a square shape. We create a hole in the middle of the plane, just insetting and deleting the central polygon. And using modifiers, we add thickness. We add the inner part as well, starting from a cube, and then we create the belt around our cute elf. We start from a cylinder again. We delete the upper and bottom cap. Using the snapping, we make sure that the points are attached or at least close to our character. Also, when you use the snapping, if you don't want to move across one of the axes, simply press G and then Shift and the axis that you don't want to move across. In this case, I don't want them to move on the Z axis, so I press G, Shift, Z. Again, for the belt, we add a solidify command, and then we move to the hands. We need to create cuts that allow us to bend the hands. We start creating 2 cuts for each finger, and then selecting the edges of these cuts, we inset them in a way that we increase of 1 polygon. Finally, we create the teeth. We start from a sphere, we remove the upper part, and we create a simple teeth. We duplicate it in order to put 6 teeth on the top and 6 on the bottom. Selecting each single tooth, we move it in the front or the back of the mouth in order to follow the geometry. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the 3 tutorials, and I really wish to see you here next week for the second part that will be about texturing the character. Ciao and Merry Christmas!